Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get started with our May 14th council session. This morning, we're going to get started with a moment of silence. If you can please rise as you're able. Thank you so much. We're going to begin our day with some presentations, and we're going to begin with our first proclamation is to recognize the 40th anniversary of the Montgomery College Germantown campus by Councilmember Rice.
He's running late.
And Councilmember Rice will be with us shortly, so should we proceed to the second one? All right, so we will actually change order and start with a proclamation recognizing Raising Awareness Month of Mental Health in the Asian American Community by Councilmember Albornoz.
Good morning. I'd like to invite up behind me all of the people who are here for this important proclamation. If you could come join me here in front of the dais. Great. Come on in. While we fill in the back here. Well, good morning, everybody, again. My name is Councilmember Gabe Albornoz, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of serving along my colleagues, Councilmember Craig Rice and Councilmember Evan Glass, on the Health and Human Services Subcommittee of the County Council. And yesterday, we celebrated Mental Health Awareness Month and acknowledged that this is a growing challenge across our entire country that impacts all of our socioeconomic groups, but also our multicultural groups as well. And we are extraordinarily fortunate in Montgomery County to have developed a very unique initiative to ensure that we provide a stronger bridge between our county government and, in particular, our multi-ethnic and multicultural communities. And so our minority health initiatives have been doing an outstanding job for well over a decade, extending the reach of county government to be able to devise partnerships and alliances and build trust within communities. And so I am honored this morning to acknowledge two very important initiatives carried forward by the Asian Health Initiative to really bring light to mental health challenges, the unique mental health challenges facing our Asian community here in Montgomery County, which is growing rapidly. And we are so fortunate that so many members of our Asian community have decided to make Montgomery County home because they have come for the same reasons that my family immigrated here to Montgomery County in the 1960s. And so we want to carry forward a partnership and alliance with these important initiatives. And so I'd like to welcome somebody to speak on behalf of the entire group to talk a little bit about these initiatives briefly, and then I will read a proclamation. So if you could please introduce yourself and some of the people here present.
Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz. My name is Nguyen Nguyen. I am the chair of the Asian American Health Initiative Steering Committee. So it's our honor to be here, and on behalf of my colleagues and also our partners from different agencies, thank you for your support, and also for Councilmember Rice and Evan Glass on the HHS committee. So, as you have recognized that the Asian American community have growing population in the county, a lot of time we are mistaken to be a model minority, that we are great, we have no need. But actually we do have a lot of need and challenges. And mental health is a big challenge that we encounter, especially for our vulnerable population is women and seniors, and also the youth. So a lot of Asian youth has suffered from these issues. So starting in 2015, Asian American Health Initiative have started with the photo novel, which is an innovative approach to use a cultural and language relevant material to help educate our community on these special issues. So some of this you can see here. This is the 5th iteration of this work, because with this we start focus on the issue of social connections, the care for the guide for caregivers, because we realize the importance of supporting the caregiver and the challenges that they encounter. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the mental health ambassadors. Those are experts, and also they are the people who live through the experience, who have helped to contribute to the development of this guide, and also volunteer from our community who have support and give our input and feedback so that we can have this guide made. So we have this photo novel in 5 different languages. We have it in Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Hindi, and English. But AHI have developed a platform that can be translated this material in many other languages. So if you have the need in your community, contact the office. We can help to work with you to translate to other material. So at the end, if you pick up some of this information, and if we have a few books that you can see, if you see the language that you cannot understand, please understand how those immigrants first come here. And the services, when they come to the government office to pick up the material, that's how they feel. So I hope that through this experience, we can continue to work together with you to deliver the material and also the education needed to support our community better. So thank you. And if I may have a few minutes to invite our colleague, Dr. Victoria Cho from SAMHSA, to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. I'm representing the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. We partnered with AAHI with a leadership of Perry Chan here, and also with the Asian Pacific American Officers Committee to create the Healthy Mind Initiative. This is an initiative that focuses on raising mental health awareness for Asian American and Pacific Islander youth. And SAMHSA provided the support in developing a presentation that the Asian Pacific American officers outreached into the community to provide this presentation. And we have been very honored to participate in this partnership and are thankful for them. So I'd like Karen Chalvez, who is part of APOC, to share a few words.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It is our privilege to serve in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps, and it's been an honor to work with AHI and SAMHSA in this Partnership for Healthy Minds Initiative. We couldn't have done it without the support and the training that AHI has provided to our officers. So we thank everyone for their leadership and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will read the proclamation. You can just hold it. Thank you so much. Great. All right. The County Council of Montgomery County hereby provides the following proclamation. Whereas, as the Asian population in Montgomery County has nearly doubled in the past 2 decades to over 160,000 people, the older Asian American adult population has also grown to become the largest minority senior subgroup in the county, constituting 15% of the senior population. And whereas the Asian American communities face unique mental health challenges and barriers to accessing care, such as cultural misconceptions and stigma about mental health, limited use of mental health services, and a lack of culturally and linguistically responsive mental health programs, services, and providers. And whereas, in response, the Asian American Health Initiative is actively tackling the mental health needs of the Asian American community through innovative and powerful community-centered strategies rooted in community engagement, community empowerment, capacity building, and systems improvement. And whereas, with the support of their steering committee, mental health ambassadors, patient navigators, and community volunteers, AAHI has developed a unique educational tool, the 5th installment of their photo novel project entitled Social Connections, a resource for caregivers, to raise awareness and foster dialogue about social isolation and loneliness among Asian American seniors. And whereas AAHI, in collaboration with the Asian Pacific American Officers Committee of the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration established the Healthy Mind Initiative, which aims to improve mental health literacy, stigma, and cultural behaviors in Asian American communities. Now, there it be resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby congratulates all partners involved with the development of Photo Novel 5 and the Healthy Mind Initiative, presented today, the 14th day of May in the year 2019, signed by myself and Council President Nancy Navarro. So why don't we take a picture together, and if you can give these great folks a round of applause.
Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead then and do the proclamation recognizing the Springbrook High School wrestling team state championship by Councilmember Albornoz and myself.
All right, well, welcome again, everybody. So I received one of my favorite emails since my term began as the county council president from the coach of this remarkable group of young men who recently won their first state championship in the wrestling category for Springbrook High School. Springbrook, as many of you know, has a really remarkably impressive athletic history, but this was their first state championship in the category of wrestling. And he emailed me about the adversity that the team had to overcome. And when you look at the incredible diversity of this team, it so represents the incredible diversity that we have in this county. And for the team to come together in such an impressive fashion was something that Council President Navarro and I really thought needed to be acknowledged. And so we are honored to present this proclamation. I can tell you sports played a very important in my life. I did play sports at Walt Whitman High School. We did win a state championship in soccer, by the way, my senior year. And it really did help frame for me in so many different ways the importance of teamwork, of goal setting. And so we're so thrilled and honored to acknowledge the team. And I will now defer to Council President Navarro to say a few words as well.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Albornoz. Well, this is really exciting. I have to say that I was not necessarily totally surprised because I know Springbrook High School very well. It is very close to my home. It's in my district, of course. My oldest daughter graduated in 2010. I originally said 2014, and I just texted her. She's like, no, Mom, it's 2010. Anyway, I have two daughters. But anyway, Springbrook High School is a very special place. And it's a special place because it absolutely provides a sense of belonging to every single student. I know that was the case for my daughter. She actually transferred from Blake to Springbrook High School, which is her base school. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there in Springbrook, she found her sense of self. And she would always say to me, you know, this is not unique. This is what Springbrook High School truly represents. I want to acknowledge Dr. Art Williams for his amazing leadership at Springbrook High School and all the staff that every single day they go above and beyond to ensuring that this school, which is actually representative of the vast majority of the schools in Montgomery County vis-a-vis its diversity, that it always provides high expectations and extraordinary support so that every student can maximize their own potential. I wanted to also note, in terms of this issue of diversity and how we always talk about it, and we always talk about how important it is and the strength that it brings, that among this group, for example, it's my understanding that there are 3 Haitian American students, Desav Jean, Pierre Jean, and Jean Mahou, who came to Springbrook High School not speaking, a lot of English, but through this extraordinary process of coming together, of learning how to be a team, etc., played a very important role in the state championship, just like every single one of those students. And I mention them because it represents once again and it reflects what it is that here in Montgomery County we do every day to provide extraordinary opportunities to all of our students. I also want to recognize, of course, Coach Whittles, who really has helped and really has guided each of our students through this championship, but also making sure that you cement those skills that will also help as they move forward and achieve great things. My daughter went off to Howard University, graduated, and now she works in a very amazing place here in Washington, D.C., and for her, Springbrook High School always has that special place in her heart because it provided that foundation. So congratulations to all of you. I do know that we have a proclamation as well, and Councilmember Jawanda, who also lives very close to Springbrook High School, I think is also going to say some words.
Thank you, Council President, and congratulations to all of these amazing young men and to the administration. As Council President mentioned, I'm very close to Springbrook. I tutor there. I go to programs. My kids go to the plays. So please do another play, Mr. Williams. They're asking. And it's just a great testament. I want to amen everything the Council President said about how great of a school Springbrook is and how representative it is of all of our great schools in the county and of our diversity and of just excellence. And this is just yet another example. And so I'm so glad that they allowed me to come up here and join them. So I'm just going to quickly present these 3 certificates, and then Councilmember Albanaz will read the proclamation. So this first one is to Dr. Art Williams, the principal at Springbrook High School, in recognition of being an outstanding leader and mentor to the members of the Springbrook varsity wrestling team for the 2018-2019 season. We could obviously also add into the whole school population. So please come up and accept your council certificate. You're welcome. You're welcome. The next is to our great athletic director at Springbrook, Dan Faher. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. In recognition of being an outstanding leader and mentor to the team in this season. And last but not least, I'm sure the guys are excited, Coach Rob Whittles, the head coach. Yeah, here we go. Thank you for come on up, in recognition of an outstanding coach, leader, and mentor to the members of the Springbrook varsity wrestling team for the 2018-19 season. And it's signed by Councilmember Albanaz. Congratulations. Why don't you say a couple words for your team?
Thank you. We're very honored to be here. Very special privilege for these guys to be recognized in front of all of you for the hard work that they put in this year. In addition to the diversity of the team and everybody coming together, only 3 of these guys had ever wrestled before they got to high school. The rest of them had picked up the sport as freshmen at the school and not only caught up to but surpassed a lot of teams around the state who've been wrestling their whole lives. That's all due to the hard work, the dedication, the sacrifice that they're willing to give on a daily basis. Anything we've asked of them as coaches, they've responded to. They've stepped up to the challenge. They've been willing to sacrifice for their teammates, for their coaches, to do whatever's necessary for the team to win. And that character and that ability to sacrifice, to dedicate, to overcome adversity will hopefully help them to continue developing as men as they get older. So thank you guys for having us and for this great honor. We're very privileged, very honored to be here. Thank you.
All right, so here we're presenting this proclamation from the County Council of Montgomery County. Whereas on February 9th, 2019, the Springbrook Blue Devils varsity men's wrestling team won in overtime its first state championship in school history in a 36-18 victory over South River High School, the #1 seed. And whereas this historic win was preceded by an outstanding performance where it finished with a 25-1 record and clinched its first ever regional championship title at 4A North Region Championship Tournament. And whereas these momentous wins would not have been possible without this team's willingness to exhibit communication, teamwork, respect, overcoming injury, illness, and eventually surpassing the extensive athletic experience of their opponents, steered by the vision of their head coach, Mr. Robert Whittles, and the rest of the Springbrook High School wrestling coaching team. And whereas most of the wrestlers on this varsity team did not begin to compete in this sport until they arrived at Springbrook High School, which is telling of the team's commitment and ability to find common ground in order to succeed. And whereas this team is comprised of students who represent various countries around the world, including Haiti, Vietnam, Korea, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, Cameroon, Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Lebanon, China, and the Philippines. And it is through that diversity that helped this team end this year's season with great achievement. And whereas these hometown heroes are a clear demonstration of what our county, state, and nation represent, a community filled with members from distinct backgrounds, athletic and intellectual abilities, languages spoken, and life experiences coming together to achieve notable accomplishments and fortify Montgomery County through their actions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby congratulates the Springbrook High School varsity wrestling team for its commitment and collaboration to overcome the odds and achieve greatness through sportsmanship, athletic, and teamwork. That is really cool. Presented this 14th day of May in the year 2019, signed by myself and Council President Navarro. All right, let's give him one more round of applause and take a team picture. My colleagues would stand behind us.
Congratulations again to Springbrook High School wrestling team. Blue Devils, go on. Yeah. Okay, so now we have a proclamation recognizing the 40th anniversary of the Montgomery College Germantown campus by Councilmember Rice.
So from Blue Devils to Raptors, come on down. We have our Montgomery College campus. And so just wanted to start off, you heard yesterday from us, and we talked a little bit about Montgomery College and what Montgomery College means to this community. And it really is something that has historical significance. And it's one in which there's some little known facts that I just wanted to share with you about Montgomery College Germantown campus, besides the fact that it is the only community college in the nation with a hospital on its campus, which is incredibly interesting because it talks about the continued commitment when it comes to workforce development, when it comes to partnering with our private sector to ensure that we can provide the best type of training that there is for our constituents. It really is a shining example. But there's so many other things that go on at that campus that a lot of folks just don't know about. The WSSC water tower that's there. I think holds about 2 million gallons of water. And one of the interesting things about that water tower is actually it was proclaimed as one of the best designs for water towers. If anybody's ever seen it, as you drive up and down 270, you look over and it looks like a big world. It is one that is welcoming in terms of saying that Montgomery College represents everyone. And everyone is welcome at Montgomery College, but it received one of the steel fabricator best designs for steel water towers. So kind of interesting. And then one of the other things, and I was thinking about whether or not I would say this or not, but you know, it is an interesting fact. It was before Montgomery College took over, but at that Goldenrod building, just so you know, for those of you who are fans of kind of the, you know, more entertainment news, O.J. Simpson's glove was actually processed at that Goldenrod building. Now again, I just want to be very clear. Montgomery College had nothing to do with it. So regardless of where you fall in terms of how that court case ended up, it is just very interesting that you have all kinds of stuff that's happening at Germantown. But let me just say this. The great thing is that we know the great education that goes on at Montgomery College. And to celebrate 40 years of public service is truly what this is about. And understanding that we are delivering for our community, making sure that folks can either learn a new trade, continue on their pathways to college or to careers, just to keep the mind going. We talked about it yesterday in terms of expanding your knowledge base. All of those things happen on the campuses of our great community colleges throughout the nation. But of course, the best community college is our Montgomery College right here in Montgomery County, Maryland. And so I'm so proud to be able to present this proclamation today. But first, I'm going to let Dr. Pollard say a few words. I know that you have both faculty and staff and students that are here representing the great things that go on here at the college. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Pollard.
Thank you, Councilmember Rice, and certainly thank you to the Council President and the entire Council for this recognition. I do want to call out Margaret Latimer, where is she? She should come right over here, who is the Vice President and Provost for that campus and does extraordinary leadership there. I also want to thank and acknowledge these students who are here. Many of you may not know that it is finals week at Montgomery College, and I do have it on good authority that several of them have already finished their finals. A couple are heading back for last ones, but I want to thank them. And as we prepare for the happiest time of year at Montgomery College, as we prepare to have nearly 3,000 graduates walk across the stage actually graduate on Friday, and roughly 1,200 walk across the stage. We're extremely grateful to the Council for this recognition of our 40th anniversary of our Germantown campus. Montgomery College serves every sector of this county, regardless of the zip code, up county, down county, east county, whatever part of the county you want to refer to. And our job is to meet the promise and to prepare students for the work of the future, but also to prepare them to be wonderful citizens of Montgomery County. For 40 years, the Montgomery College Germantown campus has served the up-county residents and helped to create a thriving and striving, just community. We have students like Glenn, who is a veteran who grew up in Germantown with difficulties, and after his family was evicted from his home, he spent years at Northwest High School homeless. And after high school graduation, he enrolled at the college for a year, then enlisted in the Army. And after a very difficult accident where he fell there, he had a near life-threatening incident there, and as a result of that, he left the Army and returned to Montgomery College. He is now 26 and attending University of Maryland, having completed his degree at Montgomery College with a 4.0 GPA. We are grateful to the leaders of this county who understand and were prescient about the need for a community college in Up County, who implemented this campus before there was a Germantown town center, before there was Clarksburg, and as a proud Clarksburg resident, that surprises me to know that there was something before Clarksburg was there, and then also even before there was a DNA alley. Now the the Germantown campus stands as an anchor institution for many of our community. It is home to our Bioscience Education Center, our PIC-MC a business incubator, and certainly a hospital, as Councilmember Rice mentioned earlier. And this campus continues to be a key incubator for workforce needs and economic development in Montgomery County. With our new translational life sciences program, MC remains at the cutting edge of workforce development, meeting the needs of employers and the community. With its designation as a RISE zone, the campus will attract businesses and will certainly be helping to feed the ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship in Montgomery County. Founded on access, the college and this campus is rooted in enterprising and innovative ideas, and I can't imagine what another 40 years will present for Montgomery College and for our Germantown campus. I know that Vice President Latimer already is imagining phenomenal things for that campus, majors that don't even exist right now that we know will exist in another 40 years. So we're tremendously grateful to the council for support of your community college, but more importantly, so excited about this opportunity to recognize the phenomenal students, faculty, staff, alumni, and certainly former board members as well who do exceptional work on behalf of Montgomery College. Thank you, Councilmember Rice.
It's always difficult to follow Dr. Pollard. And so I will underscore what she said, but add my thanks as well for the proclamation to the President, the Council President Navarro, the Council, for their support for 40 years. It isn't just this Council, but those who have preceded them to make us what we are. And I wanted to reiterate something that Council President Navarro said earlier about the extraordinary opportunity in the county for the incredibly diverse population that we have. And we are very proud to have contributed at Germantown specifically to 40 years of providing extraordinary opportunity. And it has been with the vision of the county and college leaders that we are at the cutting edge of some of the technology, cybersecurity. We have representatives here from these programs, biotechnology, but truly that culturally aware educating the population, the citizens of tomorrow, who will not only do that cutting edge work in the technical fields, but also support those people. If you look at the people who do those business, behind them is that invisible support staff sometimes, and it happens because of that. And it's really all that we do, not just the forefront, the headline grabbing, the glove in the at the lab before it was Montgomery College. And to just share with you one story of discovery that has happened at Montgomery College just a couple of years ago. An observant student saw an orange-eyed Drosophila fruit fly, and she is now credited with discovering a new species of fruit fly right there at Montgomery College as an undergraduate. So wonderful things happening with tremendous faculty and fabulous students, and a great president and the support of a wonderful council. Thank you.
So I'm going to read this proclamation, but one of the things I wanted to share, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, I know a few people do. The reason why I ran for office, when I moved to Germantown, Germantown didn't have a hospital. And it was one of the things when I joined a local group called the Germantown Alliance, we had pushed for a presence, understanding that we have over 100,000 residents in Germantown, but didn't have a hospital. And folks would have to be transported all the way down to Shady Grove or to Howard County and up to Frederick, and it was incredibly long for, especially when it came to some trauma patients. And to be able to see that happen in Germantown on Montgomery College's campus, and then to see the benefits that result when it comes to biotech and the partnership that's there with our biotech corridor, but also when it comes to medical, tying all those things together is just incredible. And it's one of the things that when we talk about innovation, when we talk about working well for our community, that's what happens at Montgomery College. I'd like to, once I'm done with this proclamation, invite my colleagues to come down, because what we did as a council is say how important Montgomery College is to us. All of us, all 9 of us, said this is incredibly important and we need to support the college. And so I want them to also share in this celebration and be down here with us as we take this picture and celebrate you. So, whereas for 40 years, the Montgomery College Germantown campus has been a hallmark of our thriving and robust Germantown and Uptown community, and whereas built on a parcel of farmland, Montgomery College's youngest campus opened with 2 buildings, 24 employees, and 1,200 students in 1978. Councilmember Friedson, I don't think you were born then. I kid. And now serves nearly 7,000 students per semester in 8 buildings. Whereas the campus is home to the Pinckney Innovation Complex for Science and Technology, also known affectionately as PIC-MC, which integrates academic, business, and research on the Germantown campus with Holy Cross Hospital as its anchor tenant. And whereas PIC-MC Germantown campus was named an opportunity zone, encouraging redevelopment of communities via job creation and opportunities for business, housing, and retail growth. And whereas Montgomery College Germantown campus continues to reinvent the boundaries in education, offering early college programs in computer science and cybersecurity to high school students starting this fall in 2019, as well as offering its adult learners opportunities in career-changing programs in bioscience and cybersecurity. And whereas as the campus celebrates 40 years, we honor the tremendous work that Montgomery College Germantown campus does each and every day to ensure the future of a thriving Montgomery County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby celebrates the 40th anniversary of Montgomery College Germantown campus, presented this 14th day of May in the year 2019, signed by myself and our Council President, Nancy Navarro. Congratulations. Colleagues, please come on down. Come on down.
Great celebrations of amazing educational institutions and important issues this morning. Now we're on to general business. Ms. Limarzi, do you have any announcements?
Yes, good morning. There is an addendum this morning, a correction to item 2H. It is an introduction of the resolution reaffirming the council's commitment to economic development in the East County. Action will be later after we finish budget. And there is a receipt and release of OLO Report 2019-4. Also, the council did receive a petition. It is a petition from residents of Montgomery County supporting the restoration of community green space at the old Kensington Elementary School, and it was signed by 56 persons.
Thank you so much, Ms. Limarzi. So we have distributed the minutes of April 23rd and 30th beforehand. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, those minutes will be approved. Item 2 is the consent calendar. I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Rice. Okay. Any discussion for the consent calendar? I don't see any lights, so with that, all those in favor of adopting the consent calendar, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Excellent. Okay, so on to item 3. And this is an interview for the county executive's appointee as Division Chief, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Volunteer Services, Mr. A. Michael Kelly. Good morning. Okay. Ms. Fariba, would you like to make any introductory remarks? Will you please press the button at the base of the microphone? Thank you.
Fariba Kassiri, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. Sitting next to me is Mike Kelly, County Executive's candidate for the Volunteer Division Chief position with Montgomery County Fire Rescue. Mike also has been community responder for nearly 45 years, serving in many roles, both within the county as well as the state level. On behalf of County Executive and our CAO Andrew Klein, I present Mike Kelly.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Mr. Kelly. I have some questions that are pretty much pro forma, and then we'll open it up to my colleagues for any comments or questions that they might have, and we'll engage in a conversation. So, Mr. Kelly, how has your professional experience prepared you for the new challenge as Division Chief?
First of all, I want to thank the council for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. As Ms. Fariba has said, that I'm in my 45th year as a volunteer firefighter and EMT in Montgomery County. 25 of those years have been as a chief officer or command officer. In the last 6 years, I have been chief of the Sandy Spring Volunteer Fire Department. And I've also served since 2012 as a executive appointed member to the Fire and Emergency Services Commission, now in my second full term. I bring a wealth of knowledge and information and experience to this position. And in addition to all my years as a volunteer, I have about 34 years as a full-time administrator in the Fire Rescue Service of Montgomery County, 30 years as an administrative specialist with the Kensington Volunteer Fire Department, and the last 4 years as program manager with the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association. Lifelong resident of Montgomery County. I currently live in downtown Rockville here, and I have a bachelor's science degree from Mount St. Mary's University in business and finance. So with all those, I know I have huge shoes to fill from Chief Hine being in that position for so long, but I look forward to the challenge and the opportunity.
Thank you. One of the core functions of the Volunteer Division Chief is to promote recruitment and retention of volunteers. What are some of the ways that you plan to do this?
Well, once I'm in the position, I plan to meet with the leadership of each of the LFRDs. I currently am in daily contact with the chief and the president of each local fire and rescue department, helping them with all kinds of projects from grant submission to policy review and preparation for new policies going into effect. So when I meet with them, I want to learn more about the inner workings of each of the 19 local fire and rescue departments. They're all different. I want to learn who their recruiter is. I want to know who their training officer is. All those all tie back into recruitment and retention. Proper training, advancement, courses all lead to longevity for a volunteer, and of course a successful organization leads to recruiting of new members. They come automatically. Also continuing to work with the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association. They have a full-time recruiter. I will work with him. And I have served in the past on the Maryland State Firemen's Association's Recruitment Retention Committee for many years. And while I was there, I developed a trifold publication of all the benefits that volunteer firefighters receive from around the state, not just Montgomery County, but we had to contact all of the counties. So with that, I think I'll be successful in the recruitment and retention area.
Great. It is important that our fire and rescue service reflect our community in terms of diversity, including ethnic diversity, fluency in languages other than English, and gender. What ideas do you have to proactively recruit people of color and women?
I think that the organizations have done a very good job already in recruiting people of other ethnic and racial backgrounds. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I know that more and more women are joining the service, as well as people from the diversity of the communities around the fire and rescue departments. Reaching out to the communities with the local leadership, we'll learn more about what the demographics are and what we can do to increase recruiting for those particular people.
That is definitely an issue that I think it's of great importance, as the county right now is engaged in a racial equity and social justice work. And very soon, at the end of the year, we're going to pass a law that pretty much requires that everything we do is seen through that lens. I know that in the different ethnic communities in the county, there is a lot of interest. It's a matter of a proactive outreach to those communities. And this is really paramount. So I'm hoping that this will become on top, something that will be on top of your agenda. This is a county that is majority of color, and therefore it is very important that every single, segment of our local government in terms of service delivery, and specifically in this area, that we do everything possible to increase that recruitment. So I look forward to that work and see what can be done.
I think the Fire and Rescue Service has already done a great job in training of the members that we have now in diversity. And I think that will then, the way they treat the public and the way they treat themselves, each other, I think is going a long way to improving the fire service.
Yeah, I agree, but there's no substitute for having, staff that reflect the actual population. So I guess what we're trying to make sure happens is that there's very intentional effort in recruiting people, volunteers from all of these different corners of the county and all these different communities as well.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Are there any potential conflicts of interest of which we should be aware?
No, ma'am. I have already go through the financial disclosure as a member of the Fire and Emergency Services Commission every year, and I have just completed that in April. I will be stepping down from the commission. The county code does not allow a division chief to be on the commission, and I will also be resigning my position as chief of the Sandy Spring Volunteer Fire Department. That term ends next month anyway, so it's very timely.
Thank you. All right, I see, let's see, Councilmember Rice.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And Chief Kelly, first, thank you very much for your service to Montgomery County. It's incredibly important. I did want to drill down on a couple things because I know that you've served with our volunteer department for a very long time. So my first question is actually for Ms. Kasiri. So I just wanted to understand about what this position entails, because I think it is a new one in terms of Division Chief of Volunteer Services. And so from that perspective, is it that Chief Kelly, if appointed, would then be in charge of solely volunteer, or would this be something that's outside of that? I just want to make sure I understand.
It's not a new position.
Okay, so who held the position before?
Alan Hines.
Alan Hunt.
Oh, okay.
For 13
Thank you.
years. No, it's
Okay.
not a new position.
Okay, all right. And so the responsibilities would be solely for volunteers, or would this be for our fire service as a whole?
I think that's fire service as a whole. Focus will be on volunteer services.
Okay, because the title says volunteer, so I just wanted to make sure I understood what the major responsibility was, because and so it's one of those where I know that you served, Mr. Kelly, as the funding manager, and I know that we've been struggling with budgets over the years, and so we've talked about EMST funds, and I know your relationship with that and supporting that as a volunteer, which you should. But now with this new role, are you looking to distance yourself from your responsibility in terms of being protective of those funds and open to the conversations that we've had as a council when it comes to how to distribute those EMST funds to ensure that we have budget sustainability in the county?
Well, I will continue to serve as a liaison with the Montgomery County Volunteer Association under the direction of the fire chief, of course, who is the department head. So we will coordinate those activities, votes, decisions that way.
Excellent. And let me just close by reiterating what the council president said, and I'm actually not as pleased with the answer that you gave. We are doing better in our fire service, but still woefully behind when it comes to, and it's in a lot of our sectors. It's not just fire. It's police, it's fire, it's some of our county government agencies. Some of them are very well represented, but we continue to struggle. And so it should be at the forefront of us, as I know that a lot of folks within the fire service have committed to. I know the chief in my conversations with him, and others have been very committed. And so it's important that we say that, that we put that out there, that is at the forefront. We want our workforce to look like our community. And so from that perspective, we have to do everything we can. And that means that everyone who has a voice, especially when it comes to division chiefs, need to be saying that and saying we need to do better. We need to have more in terms of diversity in our workforce, whether it's women and people of color, to ensure that folks are seeing themselves in the very agencies that also serve the community. So thank you very much again for all that you've done for this community in terms of being a volunteer firefighter, being a firefighter who gives of themselves and risking your life for our community. It's incredibly valued and important to us. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chief. Good to see you. And thank you for your service to Montgomery County, for Montgomery County. Obviously, your resume is impressive. Just from the quick glance, you certainly are at Sandy Spring now. You've been in Kensington, you've been in Burtonsville, all volunteer work. You've been on so many various committees of the from the association that it takes about a page and a half just on pretty small type on your resume. So. And of course, the training is so very important. To what Councilmember Rice was talking about, you know, the Montgomery County, as you very well know, has had an agreement about what we used to call the ambulance fee, and I believe that those discussions each year comes up. You know, how are we spending that money, and whether we should be looking at discussing a different agreement. We have an agreement, and until we, in my opinion, until we have a different agreement, then that should be part of what we live by and part of what the volunteers live by. But I did, you know, I grew up in Montgomery County just like you did, and I know how many people whose lives have been saved by the volunteers. I know how many people whose families have been a part of volunteer service for the various departments throughout Montgomery County. And I certainly understand that at one time it was somebody that would save someone's life, but it was also a social side. I mean, people did not have the training that is so very necessary that they have today. And I know that and that's so very important to continue that. I realized recently that things like the CERT training, the community emergency response team training, that comes under the volunteers, which I didn't realize. I thought that was under the professional side as well. So the career side as well. But I'm assuming that you would certainly be supportive of all the type of things that we have been doing. And I don't know if there's anything new that you would like to suggest that you should be doing, but I'm asking whether or not you would certainly be supportive of everything that we have been doing in the past.
Yes, sir. I am very supportive of that. I do have a couple of initiatives. Number one, since all the local departments are different and the leadership is chosen in different ways, I would like to create, I call it an information manual for an incoming new chief, president, secretary, treasurer, something that includes all of the county policies and regulations that they're responsible, especially in a timely fashion, for reporting. So once I meet with all the departments and learn about what is needed, that is something I plan to do. And I also plan to use the term conflict avoidance rather than conflict resolution, because I think that proper training and communication with the departments, knowing how to resolve issues, would be very helpful.
Thank you, Chief. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all of your service. As was noted previously, you have demonstrated your commitment to the community. Appreciate the fact that you have given back so much to the place that you call home, and I've heard great things about you and have gotten great feedback from several who have worked with you, and so I look forward to supporting you. This is just a really important job, and so I appreciate the fact that you're willing to step into it. I've told the story before. I'm here because of rescue services. I had an anaphylactic shock allergy when I was 19. Had to be intubated. I have no idea to this day whether it was a career or a volunteer ambulance that showed up. Don't know, don't care. The fact that they came, they had the equipment that they needed, they were trained in a way that I needed, and they saved my life. And that's how I view this role, and I think that's the important that it plays. And I look forward to working with you and making sure that our volunteers have the resources that they need to do the important work that they do, and reflecting the fact that it's not just about public safety, it's not just about public health, it's about how important of neighbors our volunteers are in the community. And I happen to be literally a next door neighbor of the BCC rescue squad, and so I think know as well as anybody how important they are to our community, and how great of neighbors they've been to me, and just a great group of people. And to the council president's point, it's my understanding that actually more than half of the rescue services personnel are women and minority in Montgomery County. The volunteer service, as you would expect, really does reflect the community, and so it's important that the leadership is not only sensitive to that but reflective of that. But I think it is a testament to the strength of our volunteer service with the composition that it is, and that it reflects the community that we're in. I hope that is grown. I hope that is built upon, and I hope that, as the council president mentioned, that is an important and intentional part of the role that you take. And I can speak to the fact of how much has changed just in the times that I stop in next door to the rescue squad, and bathrooms, changing areas, sleeping quarters. These were not geared towards women historically in the older facilities, and we have to change, and the county has to participate, I believe, in supporting those changes to make sure that we have facilities that are providing the modern volunteer service that we currently have, so they can provide the life-changing, life-altering, and life-supporting services that they do every day. So I look forward to working together with you to reflect the composition and makeup of our volunteer service, that reflects the composition and makeup of our community and serves the county. So I look forward to working together on that front.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Council President. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for being here, and thank you for your service over many years and your willingness to continue to serve. Kind of a general/specific question for you related to the various volunteer departments. Obviously, you're coming from Sandy Spring. I know it well. What do you see as the biggest challenges for this volunteer service and opportunities? And I frame that question asking, I know there's a wide variation, at least my understanding, in how active some of the volunteers departments are versus others, and what you see that relationship in that situation. Do you see that there's unique challenges and opportunities that we need to be aware of to support your work, and how you plan on coming into and addressing some of those? I hope you understand the question.
I do, yes. There are 2 points. Number one, I'll call it the middle management. Right now we have men and women joining, and they go through their basic training, and then they get to the point where we need them to take advanced training to become lieutenants, captains, and eventually chief officers. And I think that we need to shore up the training to the next level. So that we would have the middle managers, the ones that can run a shift, the ones that would then be able to train the other new members coming in. I think the other challenges with a successful organization is how well they manage their staff. Having an adequate staffing plan is important. Each of the departments is supposed to have a plan for staffing. How well they work varies from around the county, from departments that have full round-the-clock on weekends and full evening volunteer shifts, to those that really don't have any at all. So that is the other challenge, is to shore up the day-to-day staffing in each of the stations.
And do you have what are you thinking about how to do that? Obviously middle management, the training issue, but I agree with you, that's a significant issue. And what are you thinking right now about how you might address that?
Well, I mentioned earlier about one of my plans is to meet individually with the leadership of each of the local fire departments to learn what they have right now, what can be done to shore up their staffing plan, and get to know who their training chief is, who is in charge of recruitment and retention, who's in charge of their LoSAP. I mean, all of the important positions in the departments, what we can do to improve upon those, and then devise a plan. But working very closely with the recruiters that we have now, and with the training academy, try to. I think one know they're working now is to try to have more training, like in the lower part of the county, because it's difficult for the volunteers to get to the fire academy, especially for evening courses. They're looking to do some more outreach training. I think that would be very helpful as well.
Well, thank you. I know you'll stay in touch with the Public Safety Committee and us at large to
Yes, sir.
see how we can support your work. But thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to also acknowledge that we have Chief Goldstein here as well this morning. Well, I don't see any other lights. Really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. We are going to take action, I think, in a few minutes. Thank you again for your
Thank you, Madam
service
President, and the
for future
council members.
service as well. All right. Okay, so now we have item number 5, and, we have item number 4. Yes. Okay. All right, so I will pause for 4 and 5. Well, actually, we can go ahead and do 5. Is that, why not?
Recognize Eric Bernard, too, from the association.
Yes, Mr. Bernard is here as well from the Volunteer Fire Association. Really appreciate his service as well. All right, so we do have before us action on County Executive's appointee as Division Chief for Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Volunteer Services, Mr. Michael Kelly, who we just interviewed. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Councilmember Katz has moved and Councilmember Hucker has seconded. Any other discussion points or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Kelly. Okay. All right, so
Now you go back to 4.
now we can go back to 4. Is Mr.
Megan.
Sluchansky's here? Is he here? He's not here yet. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward with District Council session. Let me find my place here since we're moving things around a bit. This is introduction of zoning text amendment 19-04, animal boarding and care residential zones. Public hearing is scheduled for June 18th, 2019 at 1:30 p.m. Want to just mention to my colleagues that actually this was a former police officer that approached my office because this person wanted to be able to provide some pet sitting services in her home for just a couple of dogs or a couple of cats at a time. But then when she did her research, realized that we needed to amend the law, pass a ZTA in order to allow this in residential areas. And basically, what this will do is that it would amend the definition of the animal boarding and care uses and would allow animal boarding and care in residential zones as a limited use. It would allow us also establish limited use standards for small lot residential zones, and it would limit boarding to a maximum of 4 animals, limit those animals to dogs and cats, limit boarding to 4 days in a week, and prohibit outdoor exercise areas. And this is because there are particular standards that would have to be met, and that would obviously make it a lot more costly and more difficult. It might trigger need for conditional use. So this was added as a provision. And basically, I think a lot of people probably do this already, but they didn't realize that we needed to clarify and amend the law. So that's what's before us in terms of introduction. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I guess, should we? Oh, how about that? We'll just jump right out to this one, yeah. All right. Oh, thank you. Councilmember Hucker wants to co-sponsor the ZTA as well. Thank you so much. I think Councilmember Katz does have to recuse himself, but we'll see. We'll consider that when we get to that point of action.
Thank you, Councilmember Hucker.
I know, right? I thought he was going to say something like that, but then he was being
Like to give that one a proclamation.
He was being real serious.
Enough of those jokes.
All right. Okay, Ms. Michelson.
Thank you. On May 9th, you received some budget adjustments to the FY20 operating budget. Since they came so late, you were not able to have them reviewed by committees, so I'll take you through them right now. The first two additions are items that the council actually put on the reconciliation list. $170,000 for enhanced legal representation for residents detained for deportation proceedings, and $158,500 for the African American Health Program enhancements. Since the council already indicated its interest in funding those items by putting them on the reconciliation list, I do recommend approval. And I could stop at the end of each one or go through it and wait till the end, whatever your preference is.
So we're taking action on each of these particular ones?
Yes.
All right, let's go by one then.
So those two additions to the, are items that were on the reconciliation list with which the executive has recommended funding, and council staff supports those.
Okay, so do we need a motion and a second, or is this just, Councilmember Rice has moved? Is there a second? Councilmember Albornoz has second. All right, let's see, Councilmember Rice has a light.
Just very briefly, and I wanted to just reiterate for my colleagues, because there are still other items that are on our reconciliation list for the African American Health Program. This is to reflect an error. That something was, this money was inadvertently omitted from the recommended budget that was transmitted. So I don't want folks to think that this is actually something that's, this was already supposed to be in the budget for this year based on what we had done in previous years in terms of program enhancement. So I just want colleagues to know that when we're looking at the other enhancements for this year, including our other minority health initiatives, this is separate and apart from that. This is just to catch them up based on what was already supposed to be transmitted in this current budget from the county executive.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for staff. The indication here is that the money, the additional funds here from additional state aid, I know the additional state aid was also used as the fund source for the additional MCPS funding. Is there more additional state aid that we're anticipating? Does this fund the full balance of it, or where do we stand with that?
So Circle 2 lists the different, the allocation of the different aid that has, and the different funding sources overall. So what you see here is that there were $5 million from the recently approved Emergency 911 bill, additional state aid for police protection being higher than expected, $144,000, and then the increased state aid for education, $24.4 million. In addition, they were able to reduce funding on some leases, and finally, they've recommended taking an additional $511,000 from their unallocated set aside. So it's the combination of those three funding sources.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to clarify, was the motion to adopt the additions as well as the changes in the funding? Is that
Well, for now, I think it's just those
just
two
the
additions.
addition? Okay, all those in favor of approving those two additions, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Great.
Great. The third change was the $142,000 for the incubator programs, non-departmental accounts. And the council was alerted to that just as you were doing that budget. So you've already voted on that item and agreed to approve it. The next one is an addition for the local COG in the amount of $102,000. And this is for funding that had been provided for COG for Homeland Security initiatives. They lost their source of funding, and the Chief Administrative Officers Committee all agreed that participating jurisdictions would close the gap through contributions, and staff recommends approval of that amount.
Is there a motion for this? Moved by Councilmember Katz. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Reamer. Any discussion on this particular one? Without objection, we'll approve that.
Great. And finally, we have the changes in resources that are allocated on page 2, which I've already mentioned to you, and staff does recommend approval of these 3 changes in sources of revenue.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Katz. Second by Councilmember Reamer. Any discussion? Any objection to approving those changes? Hearing none, we will go
Okay,
ahead.
that's the end of the budget adjustments.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move now on to item 4. This is the county executive appointment of Chief Labor Relations Officer, Mr. Steve Sluchensky. And so I believe I need a motion to confirm this appointment.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Hooker. Any discussion or further comments from my colleagues? No? All right. So all those in favor in confirming the county executive's nomination of Steve Sluchensky as Chief Labor Relations Officer, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Sluchensky. We look forward to working with you. The council already has indicated, a lot of interest in doing some further work that can clarify process and clarify, targets and things of that nature. So we can, every year during our budget process, make it a bit smoother. And so we look forward to working with you as well on these issues. Thank you so much. Okay. So now we will start our work session on the FY20 operating budget and FY19 to 24 CIP amendments. Let's begin with item 7. This is the FY20 transportation fees, charges, and fares. T&E committee. I will turn it over to Councilmember Hooker and invite all those of you who are here for that item. Member Hooker.
Thank you, Madam President. Parking fees always draws a nice crowd. Thank you for being with us today. So the committee adopted the recommendation from the executive branch with a few a few amendments I will run through. One is, as soon as I turn off my phone, we recommend on-street parking fees. Well, we were influenced by the powerful advocacy of the district council member in this case and recommended on-street parking fees in the Bethesda parking lot district go to $3.25 or less per hour, which is a reduction of 75 cents from the executive's proposed rate. Councilmember Reamer was opposed, citing the need to maintain a certain available level of on-street parking spaces at peak hours. Number 2. We recommended that all parking types in the Silver Spring PLD remain the same as FY19 until at least 2 community meetings are held in June. As the district council member, I know we need to replenish the fund. I believe we need to have a transparent process that brings in stakeholders and educates them, especially when we're initiating a new fee there, that the funds stay in Silver Spring for business-friendly improvements that are admittedly needed there. Councilmember Reamer was opposed, citing the need to prevent greater fee increases in future fiscal years. And then 3, we recommended the approval of the executive's proposed increase of enforcement hours in the Wheaton PLD. Councilmember Hooker, in this case, was opposed, citing concern from local businesses. And then we also recommended the approval of other proposed changes by the executive. In the case of the Wheaton PLD, I wish to move to oppose the committee recommendation and delay the increases in the parking fees until the end of the construction in Wheaton.
Okay, that particular item has been moved by Councilmember Hooker and seconded by Councilmember Albornoz, and I want to express my appreciation. Councilmember Hooker, we had a quick exchange regarding this issue. I am very mindful of the need to obviously have the kind of revenue necessary in that area. Also mindful of the fact that some businesses have been affected by some of the new residential development where folks are parking in county parking lots instead of using their indoor parking garage. But I'm also very, very sensitive to the fact that we are still in the midst of this revitalization project, and we have done so much to go above and beyond and support our small businesses. And so I feel like we need to be consistent in that effort and, wait until everything is finished, evaluate how things are going, and then move to increase, to extend these hours. We have heard, my office has heard, and we have reached out as well to many of the businesses, the Latin American Economic Development Corporation that has been working very closely with these businesses, just sent a letter with a statement, and small businesses that have signed on to it. I know just last night there was, the executive was there with Councilmember Katz and heard about this issue. So I think it's just very important that we be consistent and that we also don't send conflicting messages to this area that right now is working so hard to get through this revitalization process. And therefore, I very much thank my colleagues' indulgence in supporting my concern and asking that we do not approve that particular one. So let me move to the lights, and then we'll take a vote, I guess, on that motion or any other ones that might come through. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the department, you brought the Wheaton recommendation to us based on feedback that you had from local businesses in Wheaton, that there were residents in the area using all the street spaces, and that businesses' customers were not able to park after 6. And intuitively, it makes sense that if you drive your car to work, you get home after 6, you got a free space, you leave it there till the next morning, and then you get up, and now you got free parking. So Council President Navarro has described some businesses have a different point of view on this. Can you just describe your engagement with the business community? Please help us understand the nature of this proposal.
Thank you, Councilmember Reamer. In the past few meetings with the community, actually, Council President Navarro just referenced the one that was last night. And of course, one of the businesses expressed concern about lack of parking after 6 o'clock because some of the residences come in and park in those spaces. So we felt that in order to achieve parking enforcement until 10 p.m., we extend the collection hours until 10, and that's what was the executive proposal. And so...
Did you, the process that you used to generate this recommendation, what was it that you were hearing? Who did you hear from about the concerns about people squatting in the...
primarily from the businesses along the two sides of the parking lot 13, Grandview. Some businesses expressed concern, as I said, in the meetings, and that's one of the reason for this rate increase that we proposed. Also, the funding balance in Wheaton is low, so the two was the reason for the executive recommendation to go to 10 p.m.
Okay. All right. Well, generally speaking, I think that it's best to look at policies for this area as well as for Wheaton, Silver Spring, and Bethesda as a strategy to keep spaces available. And to the extent that that's the goal, I think you'll find support. But if it's a revenue-raising strategy, then that's when people feel like they don't want to support that. So, we did get into that with Bethesda, and Bethesda establishes this, and we'll get to that in a moment. I'm happy to support a policy in Wheaton if it's to protect local businesses so that their customers can get spots. I share the concern that metered parking until 10 is, maybe pushing the limit a little bit, but if it's the only way to get spots available for local businesses, then it's better than the status quo. But
That's
sounds like
precisely why we
sounds
did-
like there's debate about that.
No, that's precisely why we proposed the rate increase, actually creating a on demand-based rate on the streets in Bethesda, Silver Spring, and basically in here, we just extended to 10 p.m. just to assist businesses to have some parking availability along the street.
And I don't know, did the council president, you said you received a letter from the LEDC? Is that,
Well, I received, signatures and a statement from businesses. Also, I want to share that, I plan to send a letter to Ms. Montero from the Mid-County Regional Services Center to work with all the agencies that would be involved in, different departments, as well as, in this case, I know that the residents of the Ava apartment complex have been utilizing that lot across the street, and has affected some of the businesses that are in that street specifically, but also to look and see if there are other instances. This is the one that I have heard of time and time again, but if there are other instances, to explore what can be done absent extension of hours, because again, for me, if we were finished with the Wheaton revitalization project, altogether comprehensively, then perhaps, we can have that conversation. But at this point in time, I think that there is that sort of balancing act of how can we, continue to provide some kind of access and relief, and not do just a blanket extension of hours, and work to see how, we can manage this differently. But I do believe that this would be one of those, because it is so localized, one of those instances where the regional services director can work with, the different agencies, whether it's, enforcement with our police department, WOODAC would like to be involved, LEDC, Department of Transportation, et cetera, and the apartment building, to see how they can come up with a system absent just a blanket extension of hours. So that is something that we're drafting that memo at this moment, and we have been in contact. WOODAC also is very interested in participating in this, because they feel the same way. And so to see if we can come up with a resolution that is much more targeted versus something like this. And I don't know, maybe in a year or two, when the revitalization is done, et cetera, maybe we can have a different conversation.
okay, well, I mean, I'd love to hear what those ideas are, other than charging for the space. I don't know how you stop people from parking in a space. They have the right to park there. So we'll see what you can come up with, but, okay.
Councilmember Feetson.
So I have some broad comments on this and some thoughts on the Bethesda aspect of this, and appreciation for the committee's work, but also I think the Wheaton proposal that's before us. I'll hold off on the second piece. I'll speak to the Wheaton piece if we're going to come back to the other recommendations, if that's the preference. But I think the universal aspect of this, because I share, and I think there is an aspect as district council members, we hear a lot from local residents and local businesses in particular, and I think that it's an important role that we play in this hybrid model of representation that we have, and I share some of the same concerns in Bethesda, and I think that the key is needing a much more deliberate, longer term notice and outreach to residents and local businesses. I do have significant concerns, whether it's in Wheaton with enforceable hours and significant overnight change, literally and figuratively, and in Bethesda an increase on demand-based parking. It's not. I don't have a philosophical issue with any of what is being discussed or what the intentions of the department are, which I appreciate. It's the how do we implement it in a way that doesn't have sticker shock for residents, doesn't detract from the local businesses that are struggling as it is. I mean, it's not easy being a local retailer in today's environment. We should be doing everything we can to support them, to help them, to make sure that they're surviving. And so I am supportive of the council president's or Mr. Hucker's motion in support of the council president's viewpoint here, but I have also, broader interest in seeing if we can find a formal way to implement these changes, so where we do them earlier, where we have these conversations much earlier in the process, and where we're not taking them up as a council, whether it's in committee or at full council, until there's a much longer period of time when the public's had a chance to weigh in and really had a chance to formally address it. I know, Mr. Rashid, you and I have had some conversations about it. I know you're committed to that level of transparency and accountability, and I really appreciate that. But I did, want to state, for the record that, that's not an interest that I have for Bethesda. That's an interest that I have for any changes made anywhere in the county, Silver Spring, Wheaton, Bethesda, or elsewhere when it comes to, particularly changing parking rates or something that has a real significant impact on residents, a real significant impact on retailers, and I think has emotional and as much as practical implications to how we're treating these decisions.
Hey, just a couple points. I appreciate for your comments regarding my transparencies. And I over the past decade, I have worked with the community. I learned that the parking fees is always a point of unsatisfactory for some businesses, some folks, and I fully understand that. We did not go to the community in the past expressing what our plan for the budget was, but however, in the past 4 or 5 years, we have been doing that. We've been talking to the chamber, and actually, as with any other budget item, there is a public hearing process with the council that informs the community as to the rates that is being changed. And also we have met and will continue to do meeting with the advisory committees and talk about the rates and if there are any proposed changes. So I can appreciate your points is well taken. We will try to do better in future. However, in the case of Bethesda, our intent was not to raise revenue. It was purely to exercise what is the latest in the industry, parking industry for businesses, to make parking available along the street for businesses. And the intent, again, was not to raise revenue.
Thank you. Councilor Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. You are correct. Last night at the For Business Forum, the listening tour, both Mr. Elrich and I did hear directly from 2 businesses about the concern for this. And I think it was done, the idea for doing this was for a purpose to make certain that there was parking available for businesses. And it certainly was with good intentions that people who were living in the residential area near there were taking up the spaces and not allowing the parking to be used for customer parking. And of course, it was also noted that during the day, many times the construction workers are there and they are taking up the spaces, so it doesn't allow it during the day as well. But the 2 people that were there, in fact, I even asked whether or not if we changed any of the timing, would it be helpful so that they could get their customers to park versus the residential where the spaces, there's no turnover from the parking spaces. And nobody could think of a way that might work either. I think, candidly, this area is going through a great turmoil, I guess. It's for a good reason. I mean, the construction is going to bring them to a better place, so I guess there's also concern that when the construction is finished, what's that going to do to my rent, type of thing, and that's another problem. But I think that especially in this case, we need to make certain that the businesses who were directly affected need to know that we are supportive of them, that we are there for their customers to get in and out. And if they believe that the best way to do this is to hold off on any of this, I think we should. Ms. Montero was there last night. She certainly heard directly from them as well. I think that we need to, and in fact, even once the construction is finished, they're concerned that their customers, some of them are not there now. They want them to come back. They want to have a better situation for all of them. And to what has already been mentioned, retail in general is a much more difficult thing to do than it used to be. I mean, the Amazons of the world have changed a lot of things, not for restaurants certainly, but for everything else. And so, but I think we need to, once the construction is finished, and once we give things a time to correct themselves and to attract the customers to come back to these businesses, that's the time to have these types of discussions. But right now, I think we should leave it as a status quo.
Thank you. Now, I would just add that, it would be great if there was a mechanism through which it could be much more targeted. That's but the concern is that if it's just the entire PLD, then all these other businesses that have been working so hard to ride the wave of this revitalization, they get thrown in there. Whereas it seems like this is a very discrete issue to a particular restaurant dealing with the fact that they have this new residential development right across the street that we all were so excited to welcome to Wheaton. So it just seems like if there was a way to do more targeted, a targeted solution, that would be very useful. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. I know we're specifically talking about this motion for Wheaton, but I think it's important to broaden it out in context of this entire package regarding the parking. I came into the T&E committee skeptical of all the recommendations. And what I heard throughout the entire conversation was really what the small businesses in each of those communities wanted. In Bethesda, we heard that the chamber was not opposed to the increase in parking because they needed turnover to conduct their businesses. And we struck a balance from what the current rate is and what was proposed. And I think that was a good balance. And another important point of that is that it's revenue neutral. It is not a money grab. It is to maintain open parking spaces so the businesses can go on with the business that they're in. In Silver Spring, the business community expressed skepticism. And we recognize that there's some learning that needs to be done so that residents and business leaders understand what the fees are actually going toward. That the fees are going towards, in almost all of these instances, or I'll rephrase that, in all of these instances, the fees are going to the maintenance of the parking lot districts, the facilities, the infrastructure, and the beautification of those communities. And because the Silver Spring Chamber expressed skepticism, as did some residents, we decided to have a community meeting to educate everybody as to why these fees should be increased if ultimately they are. And then when it comes to Wheaton, there I was the most skeptical. I understand the transformation that is going on in Wheaton. Yep. And it was when I heard that WUDAC supported these changes, that is what convinced me. If the small businesses and the community members recognize that there is not enough turnover, I'm hearing your comments across the dais, but I can only go on what I was told at that meeting, that the community supported those changes because they needed their small businesses. And what I'm hearing from the dais also is some inconsistency, that there are problems and the businesses are struggling and they're recognizing that there aren't parking spaces for their patrons. That's what everybody is saying, and we haven't figured out a solution for it. This is quite possibly a solution for it. And I'm not saying I'm eager for this to occur, but short of any other proposal, which multiple people from the dais are asking for, I'm willing to go along with it if it helps our small businesses, because they're telling us in multiple ways, between the construction, between all the renters who are occupying the parking spaces in the parking lots and on the streets, we need to do something differently. And I'm supportive of this because I want to help our small businesses in Wheaton, and this is what I've heard they're asking for. And the last comment I'll say regarding this entire conversation is all of these rates are being proposed to help fund the parking lot districts. This is the business model of the parking lot districts, and I am not convinced this model works anymore. And so I would like T&E and GO at some other point in time to rethink the way we fund our urban districts, the beautification and the maintenance of our parking, because it's clear that from a government perspective, we need more funds to maintain these services. But there's hesitancy on our part and other people's parts, constituents' parts, to allow us to do what we have to do to make sure that our parking lot districts and our central business districts are clean, are thriving, and are safe. Thank you.
Thank you, and I apologize. I mean, I will distribute this that was signed by businesses in that particular area, especially around the Triangle, who, you know, sent me this note saying that they really want us to reconsider and not support the extension because many of the business is already struggling and they don't want to continue to lose clients because of the new proposal. Also, my office reached out to Bill Jelen, chair of WUDAC, you know, to ask about this, and in that conversation, it became clear, and he expressed the fact that, you know, they understand that it is a balancing act, but because it would affect so many more businesses that, you know, he did not want to support this. It is one of those challenging things. We've had this happen before with the regional services centers as well, because, and I tell you that from experience, when we were dealing with how to best move forward with the Wheaton revitalization project, it was a tough go because I understand that the regional services director, you know, report directly to the executive, and so it is difficult and it is a tough spot to put, you know, the directors and sometimes even the advisory groups whenever there is a difference of opinion. But again, what I'll say is that I am very mindful and sensitive to the fact that there is this one particular restaurant, which has been a staple in Wheaton, that is having some challenges with that residential development, the Ava. But there's so many other businesses who, you know, do see this as just one more thing to have to deal with at a time when they have not yet been able to completely ride the revitalization challenge. And so I do think that it's incumbent upon us to figure out if we can find a way to relieve both that particular restaurant as well as all of those other businesses that, you know, in the Triangle area, et cetera, who are still struggling regarding parking. Councilmember Hucker.
Thank you, Madam President. I didn't expect to chime in, but since I didn't explain my position at committee, and we've spent more time on this than I thought, I'll take the opportunity. My veteran colleagues here will know I always try to support district council members' positions whenever possible. And I very much agree in this case, partly based on my knowledge of Wheaton, but also certainly based on my experience in Silver Spring, where I think they're facing similar disruption for many years now. And the more I've looked into this since the committee vote, I still think that's the right position. It doesn't surprise me at all. Of course, the urban district takes the position of the county executive. That's their job. That's not reflective of like an objective survey of the small business community of Wheaton. And as much as I appreciate the argument, Councilmember Reamer, to enthusiastically embrace the county executive's position in this case, just having a little levity here.
Hey, I'm with him when he's right.
Yeah, and I would love to join you. In this case, I very much agree with the argument of the Council Vice President and the district council member that these small businesses in Wheaton, if you've been to Wheaton anytime in the last couple of years, they've been through a lot and they've lost a lot of business. It's incredibly disruptive, and this wasn't a natural disaster. This was brought to their doorstep by county planning and economic development. And it's a good thing, but it has a temporary downside that's severe. And so, given that we don't have to raise parking fees now, Council President mentioned the goal of being consistent. We should be consistent and do what we can to shore them up at this point, to me, and not add insult to injury and pile on them and contribute to the lost business when we don't have to. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel in Wheaton from where we are now. And when we get to the end of the tunnel, that's, to me, the right time to raise parking fees, and not while you're in the middle of the tunnel and they're suffering right now. The same is true of Silver Spring, which is going through extremely disruptive construction for a while, and it will come to an end, and business will return. But there's no need to make it a more challenging business environment now when this is completely, many things we have to vote on are outside our control. This is completely in our control. So why would we impose more pain on our small business community in Wheaton when we don't have to. So that's my position.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
So thinking of that restaurant we're talking about, it's making me hungry.
I know, me too.
Because it's one of my favorite. So I want to thank DOT for their continued diligence and work. I know that you have a lot of experience with parking issues, Mr. Rashti, and your staff is excellent. I also do want to thank the T&E Committee for your thoughtful deliberation on this specific issue. The reason I'm supporting this particular motion is because I do think that a broad brush approach specific to Wheaton is not the right approach in this specific instance. There are garages in which we have staggered parking, so the first floor you've got hourly, and then as you move up, you can park for longer periods of time. I think for, I believe it's lot 13, we should explore opportunities like that. But I agree very much with the council president that a robust discussion on this, which I know DOT already facilitates on a number of different levels, but acknowledging the unique nature of Wheaton and its transition would be appropriate in this case. And so I'm objecting to the broad brush approach, but not the intent of what we're trying to do, but believe by working through a collaborative effort, we can find a reasonable resolution here, and I look forward to supporting whatever sweet spot we find on this specific issue moving forward, but at the moment can't, support as it's been currently proposed.
Councilmember Reamer.
All right, well, it's not hard to read the votes on this one. I want to say, as Councilmember Glass said, Gene WUDAC, the Wheaton Urban District Advisory Committee, did it weigh in favor of this?
I did not see anything from WUDAC related
didn't
to
see
this.
anything from
particular-
WUDAC.
They weighed in about the urban district, which was with the urban district budget. I attached that, but they did not weigh in specifically about this issue.
You didn't
That-
see
that I
this,
saw, that
you
I
didn't
saw.
see
I just
this
to
parking
clarify.
rate issue specifically. Did Executive Branch, any intel?
I do not recall WUDAC weighing in on this.
It was the OMB analyst. Councilmember Glass says it was the OMB analyst who made that
Hi. Good
comment.
afternoon, Lindsay Lucas, OMB analyst. What I was making a point about is that the businesses had complained about the residents parking for extended hours and
Right.
that their customers weren't having access to those restaurants. And so we've heard that, and we've talked about this from with the executive and how DOT and the urban district have tried to go out and try to enforce it, but that wasn't working. And so one of the things that the executive didn't want to impact the people of Wheaton and also the businesses, but thought this might be a way to help support that effort.
Okay. Well, the council president has done some outreach into the community, and there are many businesses that are saying that they oppose it. So I don't know what solution. I've heard some talk about maybe there could be another solution other than making it illegal to park in these spaces or charging for them. I don't know what solution there is. You can't say, if you live near here, you're not allowed to park here. I don't think you're allowed to say that. So I'm not optimistic that there's any other solution that can be found or any other process that will yield anything different. But if the business is there, most of them feel that the status quo is preferable to enforcement, and they'd rather run the risk of people parking in these spaces and their customers can't get access rather than enforcement yielding a ticket or enforcement just being a deterrent. There's no easy answer here. But again, I think certainly I agree it might be worth designing a special community engagement process just around this parking issue that you could employ and do that. You've already committed to doing that for Silver Spring. It might be worth thinking about how to do that in general, because if I understand the process, the department works on its recommendation, make the recommendation to the executive, then the executive includes it in its budget. So you get some feedback, but there isn't a more substantial process. You may need to do something like that to get the ideas across, such as the goal here is to keep spaces available. I don't think that that is well understood. I mean, even in this letter that we have from these businesses, it says, we're having a lot of issue with workers parking in the spaces for our clients during the day. So construction workers come in, and it's cheaper for them to feed the meter, I guess, all day than to pay for a lot. I don't know. That's what this letter says. Well, it's the same thing at night. You've got residents parking in the spaces at night. So that's why the proposal was to charge. But in any event, given the communications from a number of businesses, I think that I'm prepared to support the motion as well.
Councilmember Rice.
So I want to share with people that this isn't a zero-sum game. There are many different strategies that are out there regarding whether or not you want folks to park for a long period of time at spaces, and they involve hourly restrictions. I'm very familiar, as I unfortunately have to travel into the District of Columbia often. And as I'm there and I park on the street, I'm very all too familiar with the limits on the amount of time you can park in certain areas for certain periods of time. And so that can easily be done, which would allay the concerns about construction workers parking there or residents parking for a long period of time, because if they're limited to 1, 2, 3 hours, they're obviously not going to use that as a residential parking space, and so therefore those can be alleviated. So it's not just about pricing. I just want to say something about, because it seems as though folks are where they need to be, but I just want to encourage us when it comes to the outreach, and this is something that Councilmember Navarro did, but I want to caution us. And Councilmember Friedson and I were talking about this, as I have a wife who is a business owner, who is a retail business owner, who deals with their clients in utilizing parking spaces. And chambers, WUDAC, whatever the case may be, do not speak for all of the businesses that are in that area. Many are not members of these particular organizations, but still have very insightful sorts of feedback that can give us ideas about, and there may be some that may be supportive, right? And there may others, and then strategically we can align with where those particular businesses are. In a certain block, there may be folks who say, yeah, we don't want people to park for longer than an hour. And so slap on the 1 hour restrictions. And then there are other blocks where they say, look, you know, our clientele, it's typically there for a longer period of time. And so therefore 2 or 3 hours is appropriate. But beyond that, it's not. And being strategic about those kinds of things are what I see in DC, because it's not the same. As you go block by block, there are very different rules and restrictions that are set up. And so from that perspective, that's what I would encourage us to do, to continue to work with our business owners and partners beyond just the chambers and WUDAC to get to really a more community-based and really like block-based approach when it comes to parking, which I think will alleviate a lot of the challenges that we see. So that would just be my suggestion, but I'm fully supportive of right now not moving forward with something like this until we've done a deeper dive into those kinds of things. I see Mr. Rashi was leaning forward like he wanted to say something.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that you know that we have parking restrictions or short-term parking on a street only. So we do restrict to very short time along the street for the businesses, so there is a turnover. Our enforcement is usually, or at all cases, is when there is a collection. So we have not been enforcing short-term parking beyond, let's say, 6 o'clock in this case in Wheaton. So that is why we suggested for the rates to go all the way to 10 p.m. so we could do the enforcement and make sure those parkings are available for the short term. In terms of the contractor parking in the short-term spaces, that is not the case, because they can only park for an hour or two at the very most on the street, but maybe they have gone to some of the garage spaces. So we're going to look into that, but these are all short-term spaces along the street in Wheaton.
Mr. Rashi, I just want to make sure I understood. So you're saying that you're not enforcing between the hours of 6 and 10, and that's the reason why. Well, why don't we just enforce?
Well, it's going to cost $175,000.
I completely understand, but
well, you can. You don't have to have meter in order to enforce.
No.
There is enforcement, and meter is two different things.
Right.
But we always
enforce to the time that there is a collection on the meters. So,
But I'm just trying to understand, isn't that what you just, somehow I'm not seeing if these two
Right,
statements reconcile.
and because what I'm saying is that if your limitations are 1 hour parking, for example, and you can't park your car for longer than an hour, right? Then that is not anything that deals with raising the rate.
we are not raising the rate.
Right.
We are just increasing the 1 hour. Right now, the 1 hour parking, let's say along one of the streets, is until 6 p.m. because the collection is until 6 p.m. However, we could put a 1 hour parking until 10 p.m. without collecting fees beyond 6 p.m., except that there is a cost associated with that.
Now we're on the same page, and I completely understand that. And that might be a better middle point for us to discuss and talk about with the business owners in the greater community. I think that may be the middle ground. So that's why I was saying at first that, again, this isn't a zero-sum game. It's not one or the other. There is a median point that's there. And so I think that's something that we should consider in the long run. But again, that needs to be flushed out with the greater community as well as the business owners. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I'm proposing, reaching out, not only on my behalf, but obviously the council, for there to be a convening to explore those options. Because the problem is that right now we have this dichotomy where it's kind of like an all or nothing. And we're really talking about one restaurant in particular. So, to kind of, again, it's a difficult thing to just say, do a blanket extension when perhaps you can do a much more targeted, solution. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Council President. This is exciting. The discussion here. So, Mr. Rashi, maybe you can help me out. So has there been, or anyone up here, anyone on the panel, a survey of the small businesses, an actual instrument that went out and was received back?
We do not survey the small businesses, sir.
You do not, or you did not?
We do not.
You never?
We do not.
Okay.
What we do, we work with, typically with the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
We talk about our fund balance. We provide them information as to if there is a need for rate increase and why, and where does that fund goes. And also, we had a meeting.
And the feedback you got through that process was?
Go ahead, Amir.
Yeah, they understood the need for the changes that we're proposing, and Joe Stamana with DOT. They understood the need for the changes that we're proposing, and that was it. We really didn't have any kind of written yay or nay to
Back from anybody? Okay, that's helpful.
We also meet with the citizen advisory committees, including WUDAC. Of course, with the bigger groups like Silver Spring, we had a conversation. We did share the information as to about why are we proposing to increase the rate. So these gets done. And then the other part, as I said, as part of the overall budget, the public hearing process is the public hearing at the county council.
That has its flaws and its advantages to certain people. Because I think what you're hearing, and certainly my concern is, we want to do what's going to help support the small businesses and not hamper them. And you're in this situation where there's a double-edged sword here of you have people taking up spots potentially of people that would want to use their businesses, but then you also don't want to disincentivize or discourage in the evening hours. And I just want the question I wanted to ask was the premise that the change that you're proposing, which would be to enforce the 1 hour, just so I understand the restrictions on time until 10 p.m., right? Is that what you're in charge until 10 p.m.?
Yes,
correct?
And as part of this, let's not forget that the county council has adopted that the 25% fund balance for every PLD. So the only reason we raise rate is for the funding purpose.
Sure.
So it's not that we look at the demand and then we decide to raise the rate. No, that's not the case. It's purely to keep the PLD solvent and have sufficient funds to operate.
Right, you're not trying to raise money. But so do you have any data that over the years, you've been doing this a long time, or anyone on the premise that if you extend payment hours like to 10 p.m. like we do in many places, DC and those other parts of our Bethesda, that has a negative impact on people going and visiting to businesses? Has there been any study or anything of that? Just the premise of the question that is being raised by many of my colleagues, that if you have to pay $1 for between 6 and 10, or $2 or $3, that less people are going to show up.
I don't think we have done such a study, but certainly by raising the rate in some of these jurisdictions, we have not seen a reduction in parking demand.
Yeah, I was just saying, like in Bethesda, for example.
Yeah, that's why we actually proposed demand pricing, because that is what makes the spaces available for businesses. Other than that, when we raise the rates just a little bit, I don't think it will have any impact.
And I know I'm a sample size of one, but if I'm going to a restaurant and I know I have to pay $1 or $2 in the evening, and I didn't before, would I be like, oh man, it's, you know, I might notice it, but I don't think I would not go to the restaurant. So I just think these are questions that it'd be nice to know, look into that at some point. You know, I'm inclined with the letter from the businesses here. I appreciate the council president sharing this. I'm fine with supporting the motion and deferring, but in coming up with a compromise down the line. But I think we want to do what the small businesses want, but I'm having a struggle here trying to, I think there's some conflicting information about that. So when there's conflicting information, I think let's pause and let's get some more information and make the decision. That's where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I also just want to be on record saying that I'm not opposed to, you know, revisiting this. I think that in Wheaton particularly, we're just in a very unique moment. It's just very specific to what they're going through right now. I think that once everything is finished and businesses are thriving and restaurants are thriving, I think there'll be a lot of people like you, Councilmember Jawanda, who will say, fine, hey, I'll pay the extra buck because I want to come here. But I don't feel like we're there yet. We're on our way, basically. But in the future, I'm not philosophically opposed to doing this. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Madam President. District 4 Council Member. So in my previous comments, I started by saying I was skeptical of all of this to begin with. And when it came to Wheaton, the information I received that made me support this measure in committee was the information from WUDAC. And through this good conversation, robust conversation, it seems that information was less than, I will not finish that sentence. It was not fully complete. Let's put it that way. It was not fully complete. And so ultimately what we're all trying to figure out, and what I care about, is helping our small businesses in Wheaton. And that is what every single one of us is saying. And I appreciate the conversation, the line of questioning that my seatmate, Councilmember Jawando, engaged in, because I think it is spot on. And I appreciate Council President for providing this letter, because this is more information than I had before. And given the new information, I will support this motion. And I appreciate the District 4 council member saying that it needs to be revisited, because ultimately what we're doing here, we are still not helping the small businesses because we're conflicted in how to do that. We need to, I think, wait a little bit longer for the construction to finish, and maybe there are some unique approaches we can take with the parking lot district, taking a scalpel to the district, to the parking lot, to the parking lots, and figuring out how to help that area. But ultimately, we need to figure out how to help our small businesses. And even the letter that has been provided is still screaming for help.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate all my colleagues' interest, because I think Wheaton has been a very unique circumstance, if you will, in terms of revitalization. We've learned a lot from this particular spot, including the Small Business Assistance Program. I mean, it's just a lot of very sort of groundbreaking things that we're trying to do there, and we could learn a lot of lessons for other parts of the county as well. All right, so is there any objection to the recommendation that was moved by Councilmember Huckern and seconded by Councilmember Albornoz? Hearing none, that passes. Councilmember Friedson.
Yeah, I have no intention of having the Bethesda conversation last as long as the Wheaton one. So I want to preface that from the outset, but I am glad we had the conversation because I think it's an important one. And as I said during the Wheaton conversation, I think it has broad implications in terms of how we make these decisions, how intentional we are, what we're doing in terms of outreach. My broad view is having nothing to do with the department, but having to do with the process. I don't think that these decisions of pricing for parking should be made during the budget process. That's not your fault. That's the way that the system is set up. But I think this is a really lousy time on March 15th to come out when everybody is focused on the budget. This is kind of a side note until it's not, and when it's not, it blows up, and it becomes an explosive situation at a time when council members, council member staff, executive staff, and the departments are all focused on the budget, understandably, the most important thing we do, safeguarding taxpayer dollars, and not on being responsive to residents when they have concerns and questions and want feedback. I think we are doing ourselves a disservice with the way that we've set this up, and I'm hopeful that we can have a broader conversation, and I will be talking to colleagues and staff to see if we can figure something out, and it may be a regulation change, it may be a legislative change, it may just be the way, a process change that can be done without the need for either. And I look forward to exploring that because I think it would be helpful to everybody and wouldn't put you as the department in a situation where you're trying to be responsive and no good deed goes unpunished. And I think there is some aspect of that here where you are legitimately, I believe, trying to do what you're supposed to do to protect the integrity of the PLD from a financial standpoint, or make sure that there are open spaces in front of retailers, which I can appreciate. And as part of your effort to do that, you are, creating these explosive situations with residents, which are, I think, unnecessary and unfortunate and are not your fault, but are problems specifically with the process. So just wanted to raise that and mention that, and I'm hopeful to have more robust conversations at a more appropriate time than now. I did also just want to thank the committee and the committee chair for really taking into consideration my thoughts and concerns with the Bethesda proposal. I was very clear that I thought that was way too much, way too soon. I thought that the sticker shock would overtake any other potentially legitimate aspect of the proposal to increase it by 78% between $2.25 to $4, even at limited times, would create just not a good situation and not a good look for us as a county and our interests in trying to attract people to our urban districts to make sure that our retailers are thriving. And I'm willing to go with the 78% to go down. I think it's 44% increase. It's still a big increase. I am hopeful and take you at your word. I haven't seen how the math works in terms of how much is above the 225 and how much is below the 225, but 325 is easier for me to understand, to go $1 up or $1 down to create that gap, where the goal here is not to raise revenues off of residents to support the PLD. It's to make sure that there's turnover and to incentivize, frankly, people to park in the parking garages, which are not utilized, some of them, as much as we hope that they would be, which I think is a worthy effort. So I appreciate the compromise forged by the chair. I really appreciate the willingness to allow me to join for the extensive conversations and to hear some of the concerns in the community. And I look forward to a much more intentional process that we up here can lead and spearhead with your input, your support, and your thoughts to make sure that we're serving residents in a way that we want and actually achieving the goals that we intend, because I think these are all coming from well-intended goals, but I think the execution, we all can work together to improve.
Okay, I don't see any other lights. I also want to express my appreciation to Councilmember Hucker as the chair of T&E and the members of T&E. And Mr. Rushdie, I know that this must sound familiar to you because I know that this issue in previous councils is always not as straightforward as we always think it can be, but usually is. I do see a light now. Councilmember Reamer.
This is always a point of discussion, endless discussion. With the change recommended for Bethesda, the council supports a recommendation from the executive to create a different pricing model so that street parking is more expensive than garage parking. The goal here is to free up street spaces. So while the rate increase is graduated, we're not going to $4 in one first year, as Councilmember Friedson said. We're going to $3.25 in the first year. But it is a policy goal. It's a policy strategy. It's a policy to have differentiated rates. So I think it's important that we embrace that vision because we want people to be able to find street parking, to come in and out of an urban district. If they know they're going to be there for a short period of time, come in and out of a street space. If they know they're going in for dinner and then ice cream at whatever, where they have a little more time, then they pick a garage. That's a behavior change. It's not easy. It's actually easy once you do it as a customer, but it's not easy for the community to support that change. But that is what we're trying to push towards here is smart management of public space, ensuring that we are supporting the businesses with intelligent parking management strategy.
Okay, I don't see any other lights. So with that, all those in favor of the T&E recommendation as amendment, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous, and final vote would be on Thursday. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Okay, and I believe that does bring us to the point of being able to adjourn.
All right.
Thank you so much.